Hello and welcome to Vault Vehicles here. I wanted to show you guys my commuting bike and how I've optimized it to be as reliable as possible for commuting and also to make it a little bit faster than your average commuting bike, but at the same time not sacrificing reliability. So we've got multiple modifications we made here, and I wanted to show this to you guys out here. We have got a lot of wind going on, so apologies if there's any wind noise, but we'll hopefully reduce that by doing some sweet editing. Okay, so let's get into it. It's like a hardware store that sells pretty cheap stuff, like Walmart, you could say. So this is a very heavily modified bike. We've changed everything with this bike. We've changed the gears, we've changed the brakes, we've changed the tires, we've even changed the paint. I've repainted it to be solid black. The seat is one of the few things that are actually not changed at all. It's a standard seat, pretty thin, allows us to bike and get some good pedal strokes without being too wide. So that's one of the things I left on this bicycle right here. Then when it comes to the lights, we've got this light here, pretty bright USB charging here. Important for safety, to be able to get around safely in the city so that you can see where you're biking and so that you can also let other people knowing where you are. I, however, invested more in the rear lights. We've got two rear lights. And the reason is because I think that rear lights are a lot more important than the front lights, because you can't see always behind you, and this lets people know behind you that you're there. So I've got this light here on the rear rack, as you can see, and this is then going to always be active. But then we've also got this one in the seat, which is like a backup. So in case the rear rack light battery ends, then we've always got that one behind the seat that will be there as a backup. So we've overall got a very reliable rear light situation. I think that's very important when you're biking around in the city. And then when it comes to the drivetrain, we've got an internal gear hub. This is then a Nexus 3 gear hub, a very reliable gear hub that is completely internal. So all the internal mechanisms are inside this hub. So you're not going to derailleur on the outside. This is then with the help of a cable, which I'll just show you in a bit. It's going to be pulled, and then it will make it so that you can then alter the mechanisms inside of that hub, changing the gear ratio that you're pedaling with. And this can be done while you're completely stationary as well. So you're going to be able to be completely stationary, and you can then alter this with this cable and pull this rod in and out of that hub. And then that will then make it so that you can change the gear ratio of this cog here, because depending on how this cable is pulled changes how the hub affects that cog on the outside. So there are 3 speeds, and 3 speeds is pretty good because you have like an easy, reliable situation where you can just don't have to think too much. You know, first gear, and then the intermediate gear and top speed with the third gear. You don't have to think too much, and it's nice when you're in the city commuting that you don't have to think too much. And then when it comes to the actual hub itself, it's also very robust. Out of all the gear hubs, it's also a pretty light gear hub as well. Compared to a 7-speed, this is lighter and more reliable. And that, in my opinion, is very important when you're doing commuting. You don't want to turn up late to work because suddenly your gears don't work anymore. So that's why I opted in for this one here. We also got the disc brake variant because this bike is originally a disc brake frame. So that's why we've got the disc brakes going on. And this is then a disc brake variant of the Nexus 3 hub, but it is pretty hard to come by. The most common one I find in my country is the coaster brake version, where you pull back on the pedals and then it brakes for you. But the disc brake one is a little bit hard to come by, but it's also a bit better in terms of braking performance as well. So there's a bit of a downside, it's hard to come by, but also an upside that we've got some good braking performance out of this. I built this wheel myself. I'm not the best wheel builder, but it seemed to work. I reused the same spokes that originally came with this bike. This bike actually had a derailleur to begin with, and I just used the same spokes, bought the hub, and just fit it in place, built it myself. It's worked so far really well for many hundreds of kilometers, so I'm happy about that. It works pretty well. But if I were to redo this again, I would have measured the spokes properly and get the exact length, just so that it can be built perfectly, because you don't want to eventually build it wrong and then the spokes will break over time. But so far, I haven't had any problems with any spokes breaking. A great aspect with the bike is that we've got just a single chain and a thick chain, so less likely of it breaking for some reason, and then also it's not moving around like a derailleur would, so it's going to make it so that we can have a less likelihood of our chain falling off. And that is also, again, an aspect of reliability which I value a lot when it comes to commuting in urban environments. Don't have to think too much about the chain falling off because it's usually stuck in place really well. I've never had this chain fall off a single time since I built this bike last year, so it is a really good thing. You can see I got that chain tensioner also there, and that also is just there to hold in place so that it keeps the chain tensioned all the time. Some bikes, they have a thing where you pull them in and out, like the wheel, you torque it and then it goes in and out, and that changes the chain tension. But here we've got a chain tensioner, and that's the reason for that is because both I like it, it's easy to tension it than having to retorque the whole wheel, but also because I had to. This like frame is made with vertical dropouts, and this makes so that you can't pull the wheel in and out to tension the chain. So the only way to tension this chain with a hub is to have some form of chain tensioner, and this is also bought from AliExpress, so it's a pretty cheap one. You can get better quality ones that are branded, but I got a non-branded AliExpress one. It has so far been holding out pretty well, so I'm happy about it. I think that this is a pretty good, reliable drivetrain, and it suits the commuting needs very well. It doesn't have a really big ratio of gears, but I don't really find that to be necessary in an urban environment. Okay, so then next here is the chain guard. The chain guard is really good because this allows us to have clean clothes. Don't want to have any problems with, dirty, oily clothes when you're going to work. That's the least thing you want. So this is a simple upgrade. This costs like $8, and really easy to install. Just have to remove the bottom bracket. So I guess for some people that would be difficult, but it was pretty straightforward. Fits really nicely and keeps the chain enclosed. When it comes to the pedals, we've got some nice pedals here. The reason I went for these pedals over the default ones is because they got these spiked screws here, and that makes so you can have some good grip so your feet won't slip off the pedals. So I like that a lot. It makes me feel stronger when I'm pedaling. It gives me nice sturdy pedal strokes. So that's the main reason I got it. They're very cheap, non-branded ones. You can see it's also on the other side here, mainly for spikes. Then when it comes to the mud guards here, these didn't come with the bike, but I bought these plastic mud guards, cheap, work really well, held up pretty well as well. Just make so that, my clothes, they don't be too dirty when I get into work. So these are really good. I'd strongly advise getting mud guards if you're going to work, even if they might slow you down slightly. These ones, they offer a really clean look, and they cover the tire width pretty well. You can see they're close to the width of the tire. So that's nice because it gives a nice clean look here. Unfortunately, it does not look too clean today, so I might need to clean this soon. Okay, so what we've got here then, the rear rack is really great. This is great for hauling cargo, and it doesn't weigh too much, and it is a nice addition when you're doing groceries or taking any kind of package with you. With this clip, you can put something in between, and you can also put something around it, like with the straps. You can put a big box on them and use straps to go around it. So there's two mechanisms, the clip or using straps. It's really nice, and you can also put a big box on top of it, because some of these the baskets, you can actually clip them straight on the rear rack. So it's great. You've got different mounting mechanisms. You could use the clip, you can use straps, and you can also mount a basket directly on it, and at the same time not have to have a whole basket with you. And the great thing is that you can add some lights as well. But I think it's a really nice thing to have a rear rack like this, and it fits really well. And also a great thing about having a rear rack is that you don't have to have the the packages or bags and the hanging on your handlebar. You can still have it on the rear rack, and that'll allow you to have a lot more stable steering. I think it helps you a lot more to be a little bit more safe when you're riding in the city. Okay, so then when it comes to the stem, I've not modified it per se, but I've just made it all the way down. And that's just so that we can have a more aerodynamic riding position to enable us to get a little bit faster to our destination, which I think is pretty important. We also got a bell here, and bells are good to have in an urban environment, letting everyone know that you're there. And the reason I went with this bell is because it has got a pressing mechanism. This pressing mechanism is very easy to engage. Some bells you have to pull back on a mechanism and let it go. And that can sometimes be a little bit difficult in a stressful situation, but this is very simple to use. So I think it's very good to get a belt that works perfectly for you to work as smoothly as possible. So that's why I went for this belt here. It was also pretty cheap, cost like $8. Okay, so the brakes are another upgrade I made. Originally, this bike came with mechanical disc brakes, but I upgraded to these Shimano brakes. And these Shimano hydraulic brakes are very powerful. You have to press the lever barely anything, and it will stop the brakes. Unlike the mechanical disc brakes, which you have to press quite hard to stop them. These ones, you just press them very slightly, and the hydraulic fluid will go through the tube and then engage the disc brake. And it's a very cheap brake, costs $35, but it's also very reliable. It's known to be very reliable, these Shimano MT200s. So I strongly recommend these. They've worked so well for me. I've not had any issues at all. It was really just plug and play. I just removed the old mechanical disc brakes and just screwed and bolted in the new disc brakes, and it seems to be working really well. So I'd strongly recommend this if you want to have a more reliable and also safe riding experience. Really, really great brakes. Strong and also cheap and also reliable. They're known to be very reliable. You can get more expensive brakes that are more reliable and stronger, but for the price, I think it's really hard to beat this. I love these brakes. They're so good. Mechanical disc brakes can be good because you just have to adjust them slightly with a cable, and it's a bit difficult to maintain the hydraulic disc brakes with all the fluid and everything, but you rarely have to maintain hydraulic fluids. So I still find them to be really great. For the braking performance they offer, I think they're totally worth it. You barely have to press it at all, and it fully engages the disc brakes. Okay, so then when it comes to the tires, I've got the Schwalbe Marathon Plus Tours. And the reason for these is because I wanted to go for maximum puncture protection, because if there's anything that can really hinder me from getting to work in time, it's a flat. I did not want that to happen in any circumstance, and that's how I went with these. These things have level 7 out of 7 of their puncture protection rating, and this makes it so that they're basically almost indestructible. You can see videos of people riding these on glass and pins, and it just goes straight through, does not care at all because it's got such a thick layer. They are pretty slow though because they are quite heavy, but I think for their puncture resistance, it is very important for me that I have them. And they still roll all right. They don't roll too badly. So I think for what they offer in terms of puncture resistance, they're totally worth it. And there are different types of Schwalbe marathons that have the 7 out of 7 puncture protection. There's the standard marathon, and there's the standard marathon plus, but then there's also the marathon plus tour. And I decided to go with the plus tour because it just happened to be what was on the special offer. And I also thought that the tread pattern looked pretty cool on these, but these are more off-road oriented ones than the standard Marathon Plus. So probably the Marathon Pluses would be more optimal for me since I'm only in an urban environment, but I thought these were pretty good too, and also pretty good for the price. And then I've also got this phone holder. It's good to have your phone holder to be able to hold your phone when you're navigating in an urban environment, in case you need some the GPS for navigating a new place. Really good to have that. Pretty robust. You just have to like screw this mechanism that is here to be able to engage it. I think overall the main 3 modifications we've got to this bike are that we've altered the brakes, the gear system, and also the tires. These are the main 3 things. I have gone for full-on reliability, but at the same time I want to be able to get some decent speed. But I guess I've sacrificed comfort for that, because I could have a comfier seat, and I could also maybe have some more raised handlebars to have a more comfortable position. But I want to have speed and reliability. I don't mind too much the comfort. I can deal with a little bit of discomfort, but we've gone all in on the reliability and speed aspect here, and I think that's important for when you're going for a commuting type of bike here. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something new. That's how I optimize my bike for good commuting. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll catch you guys later.